Paul Harrison stood at the viewport of the Earth vessel Horizon, watching as the massive space station grew larger against the backdrop of stars. Nexus 7 was an impressive sight, a spinning wheel of gleaming metal, nearly 10 miles across, home to the Galactic Council that had governed interstellar affairs for over 2,000 years. Quite a view, isn't it? Susan Miller joined him. Her reflection appearing in the glass beside his. Paul nodded. At 58, he had spent his life in diplomatic service, but nothing had prepared him for this assignment. Representing humanity at its first official contact with the galactic community was both an honor and a burden that weighed heavily on his shoulders. "The captain says we'll dock in 20 minutes, Susan said. As his aide for the past 5 years, she knew when Paul needed prompting. "The security team is ready, and all our documents are prepared." "Good." Paul straightened his formal blue uniform. "Any new intelligence from our advanced probes?" Susan handed him a tablet. 17 confirmed species in the Council. The Velari seemed to hold the most influence, followed by the Drakari. Both have been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. Paul scrolled through the information. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 15 years ago, stumbling upon the principles almost by accident. Since then, Earth had moved, cautiously sending out unmanned probes before any crewed missions. Those probes had detected the signals of a vast interstellar civilization, and eventually the Council had noticed Earth's explorations and sent an invitation. "Ambassador, we're beginning docking procedures." Captain John Grant entered the observation deck, his posture rigid. The 6 security personnel with him looked equally tense. "Thank you, Captain. Let's hope we don't need your team's expertise." "On this mission," Paul said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. A soft hiss indicated the airlocks were connecting and pressurizing. Paul took a deep breath. Well, here goes humanity's big entrance. The welcoming party awaited them in a large circular chamber beyond the airlock. Paul stepped forward, Susan and the security team behind him. He had studied the protocol extensively: no sudden movements, hands visible at all times, and speak only when addressed until formal introductions were complete. 3 aliens stood before them. The central figure was nearly 7 feet tall, with a body structure that reminded Paul of a praying mantis, though with smoother features and an iridescent exoskeleton that shifted colors in the light. "Ambassador Harrison of Earth," the creature said in perfect English, its mandibles barely moving. "I am Zexler of the Velari, second chair of the Council. We welcome you to Nexus 7. Paul bowed slightly. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for this invitation and the opportunity to join the galactic community." Zexler's color shifted to a deeper blue. "These are Greltalk of the Minari." He gestured to a short, stocky being with gray skin, "and Commander Vrax of the Drakari Defense Force." The third alien was tall and powerfully built, with reptilian features and eyes that seemed to evaluate every human present as a potential threat. "Commander." Vrax made a sound that might have been a snort. "So these are humans. Smaller than I expected." Paul maintained his diplomatic smile. "We may surprise you in other ways, Commander." The Drakari's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. "You will be shown to your quarters," Zexler continued. "The formal council session begins tomorrow at the local equivalent of your Earth's noon. Tonight, there is a reception for all delegations. Your presence would be ... appreciated." Paul nodded. "We would be honored to attend." As they followed Zexler through the station's curved corridors, Paul noticed how other aliens stopped to stare at them. Some with curiosity, others with what seemed like disdain. "They act like they've never seen humans before," John whispered. "They haven't," Susan replied quietly. "We're the first official delegation." Their quarters were spacious and had been adapted for human comfort, the gravity set to Earth normal, the lighting adjusted to human spectrum preferences. Paul was impressed by the level of detail. "The Council has been observing us for some time," he noted as he inspected the rooms. John frowned. "That's not comforting, sir. Diplomatic relations rarely begin with complete transparency, Captain." Paul turned to Susan. "What's your impression so far?" She hesitated. The Valari seemed polite enough, but that Drakari commander didn't bother hiding his hostility. "I noticed." Paul moved to the window that looked out onto the central hub of the station. Aliens of various species moved about their business below. Let's prepare for the reception. First impressions matter. The reception was held in a vast hall with a transparent dome ceiling that showcased the stars beyond. At least 100 delegates from various worlds mingled, creating a cacophony of languages that the translation devices struggled to keep. Up with Paul and his team entered, immediately becoming the center of attention. Conversations paused as eyes, sensory stalks, and other visual organs turned toward them. ZEX single quotes Lar approached, his color now a pleasant green. "Ambassador, please, meet your fellow delegates." The next hour was a blur of introductions. Paul did his best to remember names and species, noting which seemed friendly and which kept their distance. The Arcani, a species that resembled humanoid otters, were particularly curious about Earth culture. The Tellarites, bulky beings with 4 arms, seemed most interested in trade possibilities. It was during a conversation with the Navidian ambassador. Being composed of what looked like luminous gas contained within a specialized suit, that Paul noticed Commander Vrax watching him from across the room. The Drakari was speaking with several other military-looking aliens, occasionally gesturing toward the human delegation. "Is something wrong, Ambassador Harrison?" the Navidian asked, its voice sounding like chimes through the translator. "Not at all," Paul smiled, just taking in the wonder of this gathering. Later, as the reception was winding down, Zexler approached Paul again. "The inner circle would like a private word with you before tomorrow's session. It is unusual, but a courtesy extended to new potential members." Paul glanced at Susan, who gave a slight nod. "Of course. When and where?" "After the reception concludes. Just you and perhaps one aide. Your security team can escort you to the Council's private chamber, but must remain outside. It is tradition." John frowned at this. "Sir, I don't recommend—" "It's fine, Captain," Paul interrupted. "We're guests here. We'll follow their protocols." Zexler's color shifted briefly to yellow before returning to green. "Excellent. I will return for you shortly." When the Valari moved away, John stepped closer. "Sir, something feels off. The way the Drakari commander keeps watching us. I've noticed," Paul said quietly. "But refusing would be a diplomatic insult we can't afford. Susan will accompany me, and you'll be right outside the door." The private chamber was smaller than Paul expected, a round room with 7 seats arranged in a circle. Only 3 were occupied: Zexler, an elderly Tellarite, and a hooded figure Paul didn't recognize. "Ambassador Harrison," Zexler began, "the inner circle wishes to discuss certain concerns before your formal introduction tomorrow." "What concerns might those be?" Paul asked, sensing the tension in the room. The hooded figure spoke, its voice deep and resonant. Humanity's rapid advancement troubles some council members. From primitive spaceflight to faster-than-light travel in less than a century, some find this suspicious. "Innovation often accelerates exponentially," Paul replied carefully. "We're eager to share our discoveries and learn from the Council's vastly greater experience. Are you?" The door behind them hissed open. Commander Vrax entered with 4 Drakari soldiers. "Or are you here to assess our weaknesses?" Paul turned, keeping his voice level. "Commander, I assure you our intentions are peaceful Vrax drew a weapon. The Council has preserved peace for millennia by eliminating threats before they develop. Nothing personal, Ambassador. Susan grabbed Paul's arm. We need to. The flash of energy weapons filled the room. Paul felt searing pain across his chest as he fell. Through dimming vision, he saw Susan collapse beside him. With his last strength, Paul activated his emergency transmitter. Betrayal, he gasped into the tiny device. Tell Earth they planned this. The Horizon, still in orbit around Nexus 7, received the transmission moments before Drukhari warships moved to surround it. Captain Grant ordered immediate emergency departure, barely escaping through a desperate jump to LIGHTSPEED. 3 weeks later. The Galactic Council issued a statement, claiming the human delegation had attempted to smuggle weapons into secure areas and had been killed resisting arrest. They declared Earth a restricted zone, forbidden to all Council species. They believed the matter closed. They were wrong. The news of Ambassador Harrison's death reached Earth 3 weeks after the Horizon's emergency return. Captain John Grant, his face gaunt from sleepless nights, delivered Paul's final message to the United Nations Security Council. Betrayal. Tell Earth they planned this. The recording played through the chamber's speakers. Paul's voice strained with pain. The video footage recovered from Susan Miller's personal recorder showed the ambush in terrible clarity before cutting to static. President. Lavra Winters sat motionless as the lights came back up. At 62, she had led Earth through its first steps into interstellar space, always advocating for peaceful exploration. Now she looked at the grim faces around her and knew that peace was no longer an option. They murdered our people during a diplomatic mission, she said, her voice steady despite her anger. They believed we would do nothing. They were wrong. The emergency session lasted 16 hours. When President Winters finally addressed the global public, her message was brief but clear. Humanity extended its hand in friendship. The Galactic Council responded with violence. We will not forget our fallen, and we will not allow this crime to stand unanswered. Behind closed doors, plans already moved forward. In an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Frank Donovan studied holographic displays of known Council space. At 59, Frank had been Paul's roommate at university before their paths diverged, Paul to diplomacy, Frank to the newly formed Space Force. They'll expect us to be primitive, Frank told the assembled military leaders. They'll expect grief, confusion, maybe some token response. They won't expect what we're about to do. He brought up images of 50 ships, previously disguised as research vessels, but secretly built for war. Operation Retribution begins now. I want all ships ready in 2 weeks. In a separate facility beneath the Arizona desert, Dr. Alan West supervised the loading of experimental weapon systems onto the flagship, renamed Vengeance for the mission. The tall, lanky scientist had spent 20 years studying technology recovered from a crashed alien vessel in 2032 technology Earth, had kept secret from the Council. The Ghostwalker stealth systems are installed on all ships, he reported to Admiral Donovan via secure channel. The Drukhari won't see us coming until it's too late. Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Kate Ramirez had already infiltrated Council space. Posing as a trader from one of the neutral species, she established herself at Outpost Zeta, a commercial hub at the edge of Council territory. Her mission: gather critical information about Council defenses and confirm what Earth already suspected, that Harrison's murder was planned at the highest levels. Kate sat in a dimly lit bar, nursing a drink as she listened to 2 Drukhari officers talk too loudly at a nearby table. The humans were eliminated as ordered, one said. Overseer Xander himself approved the operation. Was it necessary? The younger officer asked. They seemed primitive enough, the senior officer growled. Orders said they were advancing too quickly. The Council doesn't tolerate potential rivals. Better to crush them now before they become a real threat. Kate transmitted the recorded conversation to Earth that night, along with detailed scans of Council patrol routes and defense systems. What she found confirmed their suspicions, but also provided valuable tactical information. The Council's military was spread thin, focused on ancient threats rather than the supposedly primitive humans. On Earth, public outrage grew as the Council's official story reached human space claims that Ambassador Harrison had attempted to smuggle weapons into the Council chambers, that humans were violent and unready for galactic civilization. No one believed these lies, especially after Captain Grant released the security footage showing the unprovoked attack. Memorials for Harrison and his team appeared in cities worldwide. His last words became a rallying cry. They planned this. The meaning was clear. The murder had been premeditated, approved at the highest levels of the Council. President Winters met with Admiral Donovan and Dr. West in the White House Situation Room, reviewing the final plans for Operation Retribution. "The fleet is ready," Frank reported. 50 ships, our best personnel. We've incorporated Officer Ramirez's intelligence into our attack plan. Dr. West adjusted his glasses nervously. The weapon systems are experimental, but tests show they're effective. The Ghost Walker technology will give us surprise, and the Nova bombs can disable their larger installations without destroying them completely. President Winters studied the holographic display showing the planned operation. "Your primary target?" "Kellner," Frank replied. "It's a Drakari military stronghold near the border of Council space. Intelligence confirms it's where the order to kill Harrison originated. Taking it sends a message, but also gives us a strategic foothold." "And after Kellner?" she asked. "We move inward, targeting military installations only, avoiding civilian casualties. Our goal is to reach Nexus 7 itself and capture those responsible, particularly this Overseer Xander." President Winters nodded slowly. "The Council believes us to be primitive, disorganized, and weak. They expect us to beg for mercy or hide behind our borders." She stood, her decision made. Show them how wrong they are. Frank saluted. "We launch in 48 hours." As word spread through the fleet, crews prepared with grim determination. On the Vengeance, Captain Ryan Phillips addressed his pilots. "Many of you knew Ambassador Harrison personally. Some served with Susan Miller, or the security team. All of them went in peace and were murdered for it." He looked at the solemn faces before him. "We go not just for vengeance, but for justice. Remember that." In her quarters, Commander Lisa Blackwood reviewed the plans for the ground assault on Kellner. Her Marines would deploy once the orbital defenses were neutralized, targeting the command center where the kill order had originated. Their mission: secure evidence and take prisoners if possible. "We do this by the book," she told her team. "We're better than them. We don't murder unarmed enemies, even if they did exactly that to our people." Across the fleet, final preparations were made. Weapons were checked, systems tested, personal messages recorded and sent home. Everyone understood the risks. They would be the first humans to engage in combat against a technologically advanced alien force. Despite Council propaganda, the technological gap wasn't as wide as the aliens believed, but they were still venturing into the unknown. Admiral Donovan made one final ship-wide announcement before the fleet departed Earth orbit. "Paul Harrison was my friend for 40 years. He believed in peace, in cooperation, in the best of humanity. The Council murdered him for that belief. But they made a critical error. They assumed we were weak, that we would accept their lies and their violence. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity does not forget its fallen, and we do not leave our dead unavenged." 50 ships slipped out of Earth orbit, their Ghostwalker systems already active. To Council monitoring stations, it appeared as though nothing had changed, a few routine cargo vessels departing. Nothing more. The human fleet accelerated to light speed, then beyond. Vanishing into the depths of space, the Council had sown the wind. They would soon reap the whirlwind. The Drakari military base on Kellner was considered impregnable. 3 orbital defense rings surrounded the planet, each bristling with weapons that could destroy any approaching vessel. On the surface, shield generators protected the sprawling command center where 5,000 Drakari military personnel coordinated Council operations in the sector. None of them expected an attack. Certainly not from humans. The sensor operator at Kellner's outer defense ring stifled a yawn. His 4-hour shift was almost over, and nothing interesting ever happened here. The screens showed only routine traffic, a few merchant vessels passing through the system, maintaining their designated flight paths. The operator didn't notice when those merchant ships vanished from his screens. He didn't notice the slight distortion in space that might have indicated ships using advanced stealth technology. His first indication that something was wrong came when alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Multiple unknown vessels detected. Another operator shouted, "They're already past the outer ring." On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Frank Donovan watched as the Ghostwalker systems performed exactly as Dr. West had promised. The human fleet had approached Kellner completely undetected, only dropping their stealth when they were inside. The first defensive ring. "All ships, commence attack," Frank ordered. "Remember your targets. Weapons free." Captain Ryan Phillips led the first attack wing, 12 smaller craft breaking formation to target the defense platforms. His voice was steady as he gave orders to his pilots. "Focus on the shield generators. Don't waste time engaging their fighters. Hit and move." The Drakari scrambled to respond. Fighter craft launched from hangars, but they were disorganized. Their pilots clearly surprised by the sudden appearance of the human fleet. They had expected days of warning before any potential enemy could reach Kellner. Ryan's ship dove toward a massive orbital platform, weapons locked on the shield generator, firing Nova bombs. The specialized weapons detonated against the stations. Shields, not with simple explosive force, but with precisely calibrated energy pulses that matched the frequency of the shields themselves. The shields flickered and collapsed. Shield down. Moving to secondary target. Across the battlefield, human ships executed their attack with precision that shocked the Drakari defenders. The Council races had grown complacent over centuries of unchallenged dominance. The humans fought like they had something to prove. Frank watched from the Vengeance as the orbital defenses crumbled one by one. Status report. 3 of our ships damaged, 1 critically, his executive officer reported. Drakari defenses at 60% and falling. Frank nodded. Signal Commander Blackwood. Prepare ground teams for deployment. In the Vengeance's launch bay, Commander Lisa Blackwood and her Marines checked their gear one final time. Their powered armor was based on the same technology as the Ghostwalker systems, designed to absorb energy weapons fire while enhancing strength and speed. "Remember," Lisa told her troops, "our primary objective is the command center. We need evidence, not just revenge. Take prisoners when possible." The dropships launched as soon as the planetary shields weakened enough to allow passage. Lisa felt the familiar lurch of acceleration, then the shudder as they entered atmosphere. Through the viewport, she could see Kellner's surface a rocky world with sprawling military installations and little else. 30 seconds to landing, the pilot announced. Lisa stood, grabbing her rifle. "This is for Harrison and Miller. This is for Earth." The dropships landed in a staggered formation around the main command complex. As the ramps lowered, Drakari defenders opened fire, clearly expecting an easy victory against what they thought were primitive humans. They were wrong. Lisa's Marines moved with disciplined precision, their armor absorbing the Drakari energy weapons while returning fire with devastating effect. The human weapons fired specialized rounds designed to penetrate the natural armor of the reptilian Drakari. Move forward. Secure the main entrance, Lisa ordered, leading from the front. A Drakari blast struck her shoulder, but her armor distributed the energy. Leaving only a scorched marked dot within 20 minutes, they had breached the command center. The Drakari fought fiercely, but were unprepared for close-quarters combat against the human Marines. Lisa led her team through the corridors, following the layout provided by Kate Ramirez's intelligence. The central command room should be ahead, Lisa said, checking her tactical display. That's where we'll find what we need. The doors to the command room were sealed, but the engineers in her team made quick work of them. As they burst into the room, they found a dozen high-ranking Drakari officers, some still trying to destroy evidence. "Nobody move," Lisa shouted, her rifle trained on what appeared to be the commanding officer. "You're prisoners of war now," the Drakari commander hissed in defiance. "Humans, you make a mistake coming here. The Council will burn your world for this." Lisa approached him slowly. "The Council already made its mistake when it murdered our ambassador. We're just returning the favor." While her Marines secured the prisoners, Lisa's tech specialists began downloading data from the Drakari systems. What they found confirmed their worst suspicions and went beyond them. "Commander," one of the techs called out, "I've found the original assassination order. It came directly from Overseer Xandar of the Council. But there's more plans for a full-scale invasion of Earth within the next 6 months." Lisa's blood ran cold. They weren't just eliminating a potential rival. They were preparing for war all along. In orbit, the battle was winding down. The human fleet had suffered losses: 5 ships destroyed, several more damaged, but the Drakari defenses were in ruins. Admiral Donovan received Commander Blackwood's report with grim satisfaction. "Download everything you can find," he ordered. "Then place the charges and get your people out." As Lisa's Marines returned to their dropships, they planted specialized explosive devices throughout the command center. These weren't designed for maximum destruction, but rather to disable the facility, while leaving the evidence of the Council's treachery intact for any who might investigate later. Once all human forces had withdrawn to a safe distance, Lisa gave the order: "Detonate charges." The explosions were precise, collapsing key structural points while leaving much of the facility standing. A message to the Council. This was not mindless destruction, but calculated retribution. As the human fleet prepared to leave the Kellner system, Admiral Donovan ordered a transmission sent on all Council frequencies. His face appeared on screens across Council space as he delivered humanity's message. "This is Admiral Frank Donovan of Earth. The Galactic Council murdered our ambassador and his team during a peace mission. Today, we have taken evidence from Kellner that proves this was not just murder, but the prelude to a planned invasion of Earth. We have only begun our response. Justice for our fallen will be complete when those responsible face punishment for their crimes." The transmission ended with images from Susan Miller's recorder, showing the ambush that had killed Ambassador Harrison. The truth, broadcast 4. All Council worlds to see. 3 smaller Council races, the Arcani, Tellarites, and Navidians, immediately called for emergency sessions of the Council. They had not been informed of the plan to assassinate the human delegation, and the evidence shocked them. Within hours, they announced their neutrality in the growing conflict. The Council's unity, maintained for millennia, began to fracture in the face of human retribution. As the Earth fleet jumped to lightspeed, Frank looked at the image of Paul Harrison on his desk. "First step complete, old friend. But we're just getting started." News of the human attack on Kellner spread quickly through Council space. Emergency meetings were called on Nexus 7, where angry delegates demanded explanations. The council chamber, once a place of order and ceremony, now echoed with accusations. And fear. How could humans breach our most secure military installation? Demanded the Minari representative, his gray skin flushed with anger. You assured us they were primitive. Overseer Xander, the highest authority in the council, remained outwardly calm despite the chaos. The tall, hooded figure rose slowly, silencing the chamber with a raised hand. The humans caught us unprepared. Yes, this will not happen again. I have ordered our combined fleets to mobilize under Grand Admiral Vorn of the Drokari. The Arcany ambassador, a slender being with fur that rippled like water, stepped forward. We have seen the evidence the humans broadcast. Is it true? Did you order the assassination of their ambassador? A murmur passed through the chamber. Xander's eyes narrowed beneath his hood. The evidence is fabricated. The humans were planning an attack all along. Their ambassador's death was regrettable, but necessary for galactic security. The Arcany's ears flattened against their head. My government requires more proof before committing to this conflict. Until then, we declare neutrality. The Tellarite and Navidian ambassadors quickly made similar declarations. The Council, united for over 2,000 years, was beginning to fracture dot in the Drakari fleet headquarters. Grand Admiral Vorn reviewed the reports from Kellner with growing rage. His scaled fist slammed down on the table, cracking its surface. How did they develop such technology? The stealth systems, the shield-disrupting weapons, these are beyond what our intelligence indicated. His advisors shifted uncomfortably. One finally spoke up. We may have underestimated them, Admiral. Vorn's yellow eyes fixed on the speaker. Gather every warship we have. The humans struck one base. We will strike their entire world. On Earth, President Winters addressed the United Nations, her face displayed on screens worldwide. The evidence recovered from Kellner confirms our worst fears. The Council not only murdered our envoy, but was planning a full-scale invasion of Earth. Her voice remained steady despite the gravity of her words. We did not seek this conflict, but we will end it. Justice for our fallen demands nothing less than the complete dismantling of a council that murders peaceful envoys. Public support for Operation Retribution was nearly universal. Memorial services for Ambassador Harrison and his team were held globally. Their names became symbols of humanity's resolve. Admiral Donovan's fleet regrouped at a hidden base established in an uninhabited star system. Damaged ships underwent repairs while fresh vessels arrived from Earth. Dr. West personally supervised the installation of new weapon systems on the Vengeance. The Sunbreaker is ready, he informed Frank during a private meeting. One shot can temporarily destabilize a star, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse. It won't destroy planets, but it will disable any ship or station in the system. Frank studied the schematics. This gives us an option besides all-out destruction. Good work, Alan. Meanwhile, Kate Ramirez continued her intelligence gathering. Her network of informants now spread throughout Council space, providing critical information about the gathering Council armada. They're assembling at Proxima Station, she reported via encrypted channel. Over 300 warships from 12 species. The largest military force in 5 centuries of Council history. Their target? Frank asked. Earth. They plan to launch within 2 weeks. Vorn commands personally. Frank's expression hardened. Then we move now. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 of Operation Retribution deployed thousands of automated drones throughout. Council supply routes. These small, nearly undetectable devices use the same Ghostwalker technology as the human fleet, allowing them to approach Council ships undetected. The drones didn't attack directly. Instead, they attached to hulls, reprogrammed navigation systems, and scrambled communication frequencies. Within days, Council supply lines were in chaos. Ships arrived at wrong destinations or failed to arrive at all. Military communications suffered unexplained failures. The Council blamed these problems on human sabotage, but couldn't detect or stop the drones. The advanced AI developed by Dr. West allowed them to adapt to Council countermeasures faster than the aliens could develop them. While the Council struggled with these disruptions, diplomatic channels remained active through the neutral Arcany. Ambassador Nicole Benson, a veteran diplomat who had been Paul Harrison's mentor, presented Earth's terms: public admission of guilt, reparations for the families of our murdered envoys, surrender of those who ordered the assassination, particularly Overseer Xander, and reformation of the Council with human representation. The Council publicly rejected these terms, calling them the demands of criminals. Privately, however, some Council races began to question the wisdom of conflict with humans. The technological gap was clearly much smaller than they had believed. The Arcany ambassador secretly met with Nicole. There is something you should know. The Council is preparing a massive strike against Earth itself. They have dispatched a stealth probe to map your defenses. Nicole immediately relayed this information to Earth. The patrol vessel Sentinel, commanded by Captain Eric Matthews, was ordered to search for the probe. Eric had served with Susan Miller years earlier and had attended her memorial service before shipping out. Finding the Council's probe became a personal mission for him and his crew. For 3 days, the Sentinel patrolled the outskirts of the solar system, using modified sensors designed to detect even the most sophisticated stealth technology. On the 4th day, they found what they were looking for. Contact at extreme range, the sensor officer reported. Very faint signature, not matching any known profile. Eric studied the readings. That's it. Prepare to intercept, but don't alert them. I want that probe intact. The Sentinel approached slowly, using asteroids for cover. The Council probe, focused on scanning Earth's defenses, didn't detect the human ship until it was too late. A precision shot disabled its engines without destroying the vessel. Boarding team ready, Eric's executive officer reported. Take it, Eric ordered. The boarding team returned with data that confirmed their fears. The probe contained detailed plans for the Council's planned attack. A massive fleet would jump directly into Earth orbit, deploying planet-killer weapons before any defense could be mounted. They're planning to eliminate us entirely, Eric told Admiral Donovan during his report. No demands, no terms. Just extermination. Frank's face was grim on the view screen. Return to Earth immediately, Captain. The Council has shown its true intentions. Now we'll show ours. Rather than wait for the attack, Frank prepared a preemptive strike. Not at Proxima Station, where the Armada gathered, but at Nexus 7 itself, the heart of Council government. They expect us to either cower behind our defenses or launch a desperate attack against their gathered fleet. He told his commanders, "We'll do neither. We'll strike at their center of power while their forces are positioned to attack us." Dr. West finalized the Sunbreaker weapon system, while the fleet prepared for what might be its most dangerous mission yet. "One shot," he reminded Frank. "The system needs 24 hours to recharge between uses." Frank nodded. "One shot is all we'll need, either to disable their fleet at Proxima if necessary, or to demonstrate our power at Nexus 7. As the human fleet prepared to depart, President Winters spoke with Frank one last time. This mission could end the war or escalate it beyond control, she warned. Your objective is justice, not vengeance. Remember the difference. Frank looked at the picture of Paul Harrison on his desk. I remember, Madam President. Paul would want justice. That's what we'll deliver. The fleet departed within the hour, setting course for Nexus 7. The Council had gathered its forces to destroy Earth. They were about to learn that humanity had other plans. At Proxima Station, The largest armada in 5 centuries of Council history prepared for its final jump to Earth. 300 warships from 12 species gathered, their weapons primed for what they believed would be a swift, decisive victory. Grand Admiral Vorn stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing the attack plan one last time. "The humans expect us to announce our demands or offer terms," he told his officers. "We will do neither. We will appear in their home system without warning and end this problem permanently." A junior officer approached nervously. "Admiral, we've lost contact with Nexus 7. They missed their scheduled check-in." Vorn dismissed the concern with a wave of his scaled hand. "Communications have been unreliable for days. The humans doing, no doubt. Proceed with the operation as planned." The officer saluted and left, but the uneasy feeling remained. Throughout the gathered fleet, similar reports surfaced. Something was wrong, but no one could identify what. At Nexus 7, the reason for the silence became clear. The human fleet, led by the Vengeance, had arrived not at Proxima as expected, but at the heart of Council government itself. The station's defenses were formidable, but focused outward. They never expected an attack on the supposedly impenetrable seat of power. Admiral Frank Donovan stood calmly on the bridge as the Ghostwalker systems disengaged, revealing the human fleet to the shocked defenders. "All ships, commence attack. Target defense systems only," he ordered. "Launch assault teams as soon as the shields are down." Captain Olivia Reeves led the boarding team preparing in the Vengeance's launch bay. At 38, she had served in Earth's Space Force for 15 years, but this mission was personal. Ambassador Paul Harrison had been her uncle. "Remember," she told her team, "our primary target is Overseer Xander. He gave the order to kill my uncle and the others. We take him alive to face justice." The human ships moved with precision, targeting Nexus 7's defensive systems while avoiding residential areas. Unlike the Council's plan for Earth, the humans took care to minimize civilian casualties. This was about justice, not genocide. As the station's shields flickered and failed, Frank gave the order. "Captain Reeves, you have a green light. Bring us justice." Olivia's team launched, their shuttles speeding toward the docking bays. The station's defense fighters scrambled to intercept them, but the human escort fighters engaged them, creating a corridor for the assault team to reach the station. Inside Nexus 7, panic spread. Most Council representatives had never experienced combat firsthand. They fled toward emergency shelters or their personal ships, creating chaos in the stations. Corridors. Overseer Xander remained in the Council chamber, surrounded by his personal guard. The hooded figure seemed unnaturally calm, despite the alarms blaring throughout the station. "They cannot reach us here," he assured the few representatives who remained with him. "The inner chambers are impregnable." The doors to the chamber shuddered as an explosion echoed from the corridor outside. The guards raised their weapons as the massive doors began to glow red from intense heat. The doors burst inward. Smoke filled the chamber as human soldiers moved in with disciplined precision, neutralizing the guards with targeted shots designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Olivia stepped through the smoke, her helmet retracting to reveal her face. She approached Xander slowly, her weapon trained on him. "Overseer Xander, by authority of Earth government, you are under arrest for the murder of Ambassador Paul Harrison and his team." Xander's eyes narrowed beneath his hood. "You think your primitive weapons can harm me?" He activated a personal shield that shimmered around him. "My technology is beyond your comprehension." Olivia's expression didn't change. "My uncle believed in peace. He came to you with an open hand, and you killed him." She pressed a button on her wrist. Her weapon hummed as it adjusted its frequency. "We've learned a lot from studying Council technology." She fired a single shot. It passed through Xander's shield as if it weren't there, striking him in the shoulder. The overseer collapsed in shock and pain. Olivia approached him slowly. Ambassador Harrison was my uncle. This is for him. She pulled restraints from her belt. You'll stand trial for your crimes. As Xander was secured, Olivia's team transmitted confirmation to the Vengeance. Frank immediately opened a channel to Earth. Madam President, we have him. Overseer Xander is in custody. President Winter's voice came through clearly. Well done, Admiral. Now for the second phase. At Frank's command, Dr. West activated the Sunbreaker. The weapon locked onto the star nearest Proxima Station, where the Council Armada still prepared for its attack on Earth. Firing Sunbreaker, West reported. The weapon released a precisely calibrated energy beam that struck the star. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star flared brilliantly, releasing an electromagnetic pulse of unprecedented magnitude. Throughout the Council Armada, ships suddenly lost power. Weapons systems, engines, and shields went dark. The massive fleet drifted helplessly, completely. Disabled, but not destroyed. It was a demonstration of power and mercy in equal measure. Frank opened a channel to the crippled fleet. This is Admiral Frank Donovan of Earth. Your leader is in custody. Your fleet is disabled. We could destroy you, but unlike you, we do not murder those who cannot fight back. He transmitted images of Xander in custody along with the evidence. Recovered from Kellner proof of the Council's treachery. Here are our terms. Surrender those responsible for Ambassador Harrison's death and end this conflict, or we will be forced to continue until justice is served. With their fleet disabled and their leadership captured, the Council's military commanders faced an impossible situation. One by one, they began to surrender. 7 species capitulated immediately. 3 attempted to continue fighting, but were quickly defeated by Earth forces. The remaining neutrals, led by the Arcany, offered to broker a peace agreement. 1 year later, a reformed Galactic Council convened for the first time. Ambassador Susan Miller, who had been recalled to Earth just before the massacre, now represented humanity. The council chamber featured a memorial to Harrison and his team, a permanent reminder of the cost of treachery. Susan stood before the assembled representatives, her gaze moving over the many new faces. The council had changed. Several of the more aggressive species had lost their voting rights. Others had new, more moderate representatives. Earth comes again in peace, she began, her voice steady. But we have learned a hard lesson, as have you all. Peace requires justice. Justice requires accountability. She gestured to the memorial. Ambassador Harrison believed that different species could work together despite our differences. He died for that belief. In his memory, we offer friendship again, but this time with clear understanding of the consequences should that friendship be betrayed. The new council charter began with a preamble drafted by Susan herself. No civilization, however ancient or powerful, stands above justice. This principle, written in the blood of Earth's first envoy, shall guide us henceforth. As Susan took her seat at the council table, she thought of Paul Harrison and the team that had died with him. Their killers had been brought to justice. The council had been reformed. Humanity had a voice in galactic affairs. It wasn't the peace Paul had envisioned, but it was peace nonetheless forged in fire, cemented with blood, and built to last.